Hey, Nick here, back with a second behind the scenes video for the road trip. I got some new animations and some new exciting stuff for you today, so let's get right into it. Last video we did a whole map and we got it to rip, and that works great. But we also need to have something to use when it's actually ripped. I need to take those two ripped pieces and turn them into two separate objects and re-rig them. Now the reason I'm doing it this way and not just adding more functionality to the old rig is because that would just be way more complicated. This way we can keep it simple, and when I do a camera cut I can just swap out the maps and nobody be the wiser. It'll look the same and it'll be a whole lot more simple. Plus we need to add a little extra stuff that would make it even worse. Now during the animation you see here for those two ripped maps, it was supposed to be real short and not a whole lot of stuff was going to go on, but then I started to get really into it. I have the two maps. The one on the right is more rambunctious, another one on the left is more calm. So at the start, the right map is just laughing. It makes you wonder, what is this map thinking? Because maps can think. So then it backs off and we forget about it a little bit and go over to the left map, and it's going up closer to the camera. It's a little shy, and then the right map flies back into the screen and slams into it, and then they start fighting until they eventually get bored and go lay back down, which helps me make it loop really nice. Now that that's out of the way, I'm gonna let you guys in on a little secret. Clearly I have these maps and I was designing a person 2 videos ago. So these maps are gonna be held by people. One of these ripped maps that we just made is going to get dropped by a person and it kind of flies out the window. So I need to have it spinning in the wind. I need to somehow get that simulation. Doing this part of the rig actually turned out to be incredibly difficult. At first I thought, well, we're already doing a fabric simulation, so why don't I just add some wind into it and let it go from the hands, and it should work. Turns out that's not how that works. All I could get was this. That's the best I could get. It just pops up and then continues off in direction. There's no fluttering, nothing. It does not look like what I want. And so I quickly realized that what I want isn't what happens in real life. Things do not flutter around the way that I want this map to blow around. So in my head what I'm thinking is more along the lines of, if any of you have seen Polar Express, the way the ticket blows around after it gets lost outside the train. So clearly I'm going for a more stylized thing here. I can't go for this simulation. I need a lot more control over the way it goes. I need time for the map to be dropped, and then I need to read like 2 lines in between when it goes out the window. And you're just not going to be able to achieve that with a simulation. It's just not going to go well. What I did here is I eventually figured it out, and I got the map to kind of twirl along a path, as you can see, which kind of looks a little stiff, but it has the general idea. And so we have the base animation here. Now that it's still very rough. I'll have to do a lot more tweaking when we get to the actual animation, but the idea is there. So I'm looking at that and I see I need to add a little bit more flutter to it. It looks really stiff. So I went for a little bit of a displacement on the map as it's going along, and it works well. Like, here's just where the map's blowing straight in a line, and this is the way it looks. It looks honestly just as good, if not better, than any simulation that I could do. Then I just went and combined the two, and bam, we got our map fluttering around in the wind. Of course, it wouldn't blow around like that in the wind in real life, but in the actual animation, I should be able to get a pretty convincing result. Now we're finally done with the map, which is almost definitely going to be the most complicated thing in the entire animation. We can move on to a camera with a flash, so we can take some pictures. The initial model and texture were fairly straightforward. I only had to make one choice, which was how I was going to do the flash. I ended up just making a glass panel in the front, generally where the flash would be on cameras. Then inside the glass looking area, I initially put a spotlight in, which when I went through some renders I couldn't really see it because I guess there wasn't anything to reflect on. So I changed that to a spotlight, which did a much better job at making visible flashes inside the camera. You could tell that the camera was making a flash, along with the fact that there was light outside the camera. So it's much more apparent what the purpose of the light was. I added a quick camera strap in the form of a narrow band of geometry and a quick fabric sim, which surprisingly I did still have issues with. So a quick tip, do not try and UV unwrap something while it has a fabric simulation on it. It does not go well. In terms of the rig, it was just a case of adding a bone to use as the control for the entire camera, hooking the strap to the camera itself so that it wouldn't fall off, and adding another bone to use to drive the flash percentage. Next, I need a couple books, so that'll just be adding one book and it'll be as simple as changing the colors. For the model, I had to make some choices, like, do I want to open the book? Do I want to be able to turn the pages? Should I be able to have the pages kind of bend as they flip? In the case of this animation, we are going to have a character writing in the book and a character reading in a different book. So they definitely have to open, and it'd be nice if I could have the pages flip for the person who's reading the book, because if they just sit in one page the whole time, it's much less believable. I actually chose not to have the pages bend. It would have very clear seams where it's bending, and I don't think it would look very good. So I just stuck with the straight pages to complete the Minecraft look. While I was rigging the book, I had to decide about how many pages I actually want to flip. I don't really need that much, and I had to decide, should I use shape keys to make the pages flip, or should I just rig them in with bones? In the end, I went with bones because it's a little simpler and a little quicker to do, and I don't need the pages to bend or change significantly. One interesting piece with the whole page flip slash book cover turn part of the rig was that I don't want the pages to go past the cover or the cover to go past the other cover. So I actually had them restrict each other's locations. As shown here in this animation, you can see when the cover gets towards page, the page then latches onto the cover and moves with it really smoothly, which works really well, and it's going to make the animation a whole lot easier to do with just flipping pages back and forth. Not that there's going to be much page flipping. I was actually having some doubts about whether or not this book is going to cut it, and so this part of the reason that I did the animation the way it is to see if I could actually bring some character into the book, even though it has such a simple model and simple rig. Clearly, it works. As long as you can get some character out of your model when it actually is the center of focus, it's definitely going to work when it's not the center of focus and it's just a little side thing for the animation. And finally, I went and textured it. I just did that at the end because I need two different books, but I want them to use the same rig and all that. So I just took the brown cover and switched out with a green cover at the end. And there you have it. We're getting towards the end of the props that I need to make for the first few scenes. I know it says scene 1, but scene 1 through a good many of the first scenes will use the same props. So we might do one more video for the remaining props in part 1. I don't know how interesting those will be. There's nothing much there, and I need like a couple of dice, some more cards, maybe a few things. We'll see. But then after that, we're going to actually model and rig my base character in 3D that I designed in that first behind the scenes video. I hope you had a wonderful time watching. Now go animate something awesome.